They say real power speaks loudly. They're wrong. The most dangerous man in the room isn't the one raising his voice. It's the one who doesn't need to speak at all. While others chase respect through noise, arguments, dominance, attention, the truly powerful man lets silence do the talking. He doesn't announce his strength. He doesn't advertise his presence. He simply walks in and everything shifts. You've seen it before, that one guy at the meeting who barely talks, yet everyone watches him. That man at the bar who doesn't brag, doesn't posture, but somehow every eye is drawn to him. What is that? Confidence, maybe, but it's deeper than that. It's control, not just of the room, but of himself. In a world obsessed with visibility, social status, and instant reactions, the most intimidating force is the man who doesn't play the game. He doesn't need to. His restraint, his calm, his unreadability, it's unsettling. You can't provoke him, you can't read him, you can't shake him, and that makes him dangerous. He's not seeking approval, he's not performing, he's calculating, he's observing, and when he finally moves, it's never to impress, it's to win. This isn't about arrogance, it's about mastery. The mastery of presence, the mastery of emotion, and most importantly, the mastery of perception. Because in a world full of noise, the man who moves in silence becomes a mystery, and nothing commands more attention than the unknown. Violence is loud. Intelligence is silent. That's the first truth Machiavelli understood, and it's a truth most men today still haven't grasped. In every corner of life, business, politics, relationships, the ones who bark the loudest are often the weakest. They confuse noise for dominance. They think flexing, yelling, fighting for attention proves their strength. But it doesn't. It reveals their desperation. Real strength doesn't show its hand. It doesn't broadcast its intentions. It doesn't react to every challenge, every insult, every threat. Because the real player, the one who controls outcomes, knows that winning isn't about being louder. It's about being smarter. Machiavelli lived in a brutal world. Power changed hands with blood and betrayal. And yet, even he wrote that it's not brute force that wins kingdoms. It's strategic thinking. A lion might terrify for a moment, but the fox survives the hunt. The fox wins the game that the lion is too impatient, too emotional, too proud to understand. That's the trap most men fall into today. They think masculinity means reacting, fighting every slight, proving something to everyone. They don't realize, when you react, you hand your enemy the map to your mind. You show your weaknesses, your buttons, your fears. The strategist, on the other hand, plays a different game. He lets others reveal themselves through their noise. He listens while others self-destruct. He waits while others waste energy trying to impress. Because every shout, every insult, every loud show of force, it's all just information. It tells the calm man exactly where to strike, if he even needs to strike at all. Machiavelli taught, it's better to appear strong than to reveal your vulnerabilities trying to prove strength. Appearances matter. Perception is the battlefield long before any real fight breaks out. And the man who masters perception wins before the first blow is ever thrown. The man who controls himself, the man who doesn't bite at every provocation, is the man who controls the battlefield. He doesn't rush to show strength. He makes others fear what they can't see. In a fight, the loud aggressor might get the crowd's attention, but the silent strategist gets the victory. In a negotiation, the emotional screamer might feel like he's winning, but it's the quiet man reading the room, studying the patterns, waiting for the right moment, who walks away with everything. In relationships, the desperate man demanding love and respect rarely gets it. The man who respects himself and doesn't chase earns it naturally. Loud is emotional, quiet is strategic. Understand this, emotional reactions are predictable, and the predictable man is an easy man to beat. But the calm, unreadable, focused man, he's terrifying. He's the variable no one can calculate. And that's why Machiavelli warned leaders, if you want to rule, you must appear both feared and respected, but never be so transparent that others can predict your next move. You don't win by shouting, you win by being the man nobody can figure out. You win by being the question mark that haunts their minds long after the room falls silent. Because when you're unreadable, when you move without warning, When you hold your emotions like a blade pressed against your own throat, you become someone they can't provoke, can't manipulate, and most importantly, can't defeat. That's the Machiavellian way. And in today's noisy, emotional world, it's not just smart, it's survival. In any conflict, truth is secondary. Perception is everything. This is one of the hardest lessons most men will ever have to learn. It's not about what's real, it's about what looks real. It's not about who's right, it's about who appears strong. And if you control how you're seen, you control how you are treated. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He didn't waste time trying to be loved. He didn't waste time trying to explain himself. He shaped the image people had of him. Carefully, ruthlessly, silently, because perception is the first battlefield. And the man who wins there doesn't have to fight anywhere else. Think about it. When you walk into a room, people make decisions about you instantly, without a word being spoken. Are you a threat? Are you weak? Are you someone to be challenged or someone to be respected? And 90% of that judgment has nothing to do with what you say. It's how you carry yourself. It's the energy you project. It's the stillness you maintain when everyone else is reacting. The man who moves calmly when others panic sends a message. He says without saying, I am not afraid, I am in control. And control, whether people admit it or not, is magnetic. It's unnerving. It's powerful. When you react emotionally, raising your voice, defending yourself, seeking validation, you tell the world exactly where you're vulnerable. You hand them the keys to your castle. But when you remain silent, when you let your presence speak louder than your words, you force them into uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds fear. It's a psychological trap. The human mind hates unanswered questions. It craves predictability. It seeks comfort in knowing what to expect. So when you give people no obvious signals, when you control your facial expressions, your body language, your reactions, you become unreadable. And the unreadable man is the most dangerous man in the room. They don't know how you'll respond. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if you're planning retaliation or simply watching them destroy themselves. In that silence, you dominate without lifting a finger. This isn't about playing fake tough. It's not about being cold for no reason. It's about understanding that visibility is vulnerability. And those who show too much lose too much. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, but few to come in touch with you." Translation, it doesn't matter who you truly are inside. It matters who you appear to be. Appear strong even if you doubt yourself inside. Appear calm even if you are boiling inside. Appear collected even if the world is falling apart. Because when others see strength, they hesitate. And hesitation is the first crack in their armor. Control the optics, control the outcome, master your silence, master your image. Let them project their own fears onto you, because once you become the man they can't read, you become the man they can't defeat. Power isn't always displayed through strength. Sometimes it's hidden inside weakness. In a world obsessed with appearing dominant, there is one tactic that cuts deeper than any show of force: feign weakness. Play the fool. Let them believe you're broken. Because when an enemy underestimates you, they expose themselves. And that exposure is your real weapon. Machiavelli warned, "A wise man should always seem weak when he is strong and seem strong when he is weak." Because the predictable man, the man who flashes his strength too early, invites caution. But the man who limps, who apologizes, who shrinks back when challenged, he invites arrogance, and arrogance blinds. Most men today are addicted to posturing. They think the louder they are, the more respect they will get. They chase validation like oxygen. They need to prove themselves in every room, every conversation, every glance. But true players know better. They know that real power isn't earned by demanding recognition. It's taken by controlling perception. Feigning weakness is the ultimate misdirection. When you let your enemy think you're harmless, they relax. They get sloppy. They reveal strategies they'd otherwise guard. They make mistakes they'd never make if they still feared you. You don't have to crush their defenses. You let them lower the drawbridge themselves, and then, when the timing is right, you strike. cleanly, precisely, without warning. This isn't cowardice, it's patience weaponized. It's psychological warfare at its finest. Because when people believe they've already won, they stop defending. When they believe you're not a threat, they stop calculating. And that's when you have the advantage they can never recover from. In the game of power, invisibility is deadlier than intimidation. When you appear defeated, nobody sees you coming. When you seem fragile, nobody prepares for your resilience. And when you finally move, it's too late for them to counter. Remember, the strongest generals in history didn't charge head-on into fortified walls. They waited, they tricked, they lured. The best negotiators don't flaunt their hand at the table. They let the opponent overplay theirs. The same rules apply to every corner of life, whether it's business, relationships, competition, or conflict. Appear harmless. Let them get close, then take away everything. This tactic isn't about being fake. It's about being strategic. It's about recognizing that ego is the greatest weakness, and most people are ruled by it. You use their need to dominate against them. You use their need to feel superior to quietly position yourself for the kill. It's not enough to be strong. You must be invisible until necessary. You must be forgettable until it's too late. You must be overlooked until you are undeniable. Because the man who seems harmless while quietly building power behind the scenes is the man no one is ready to defend against when the real battle begins. And by then, the game is already over. Half measures don't win wars. They guarantee revenge. When you confront an opponent, whether it's in business, relationships, or the battlefield of life, there's one law you cannot ignore. If you strike, you must finish. Not partially, not politely, completely. Machiavelli understood something most modern men have forgotten. A wounded enemy is far more dangerous than a defeated one, because pain breeds obsession, and obsession breeds retaliation. When you injure someone but leave them with dignity, with hope, with resources, they don't just recover, they evolve. They learn from the pain you inflicted. They sharpen their hate into focus. They return faster, smarter, and far more dangerous than before. You don't want an enemy who dreams about you at night, plotting revenge. You want an enemy who no longer has the strength or the will to even try. Victory isn't just about winning the confrontation, it's about erasing the possibility of future threats. This doesn't always mean physical destruction. In today's world, it means cutting off influence. It means closing doors. It means removing options, allies, resources, until there's no path left for them to stand on. You don't let them walk away with pride. You don't let them salvage their reputation. You make the defeat so absolute, so final, that the mere thought of challenging you again is suffocating. Because power isn't about drama. It's about finality. The man who wins doesn't need to gloat. He doesn't need to shout. He acts cleanly, efficiently, permanently, and moves on without looking back. You see it in every level of the game. In business, the sharpest deal makers don't leave competitors breathing room to regroup. They corner the market, then quietly lock every escape. In politics, the most effective leaders don't just defeat rivals. They dismantle their entire support networks. In personal rivalries, the truly strategic don't just win arguments. They reshape the narrative so completely that no one even questions their victory afterward. Mercy is a luxury you can't afford when stakes are real. If you must strike, do so in a way that ends the story. No back and forth, no second chances, no future threats rising from the ashes. This is not cruelty, this is self-preservation. Because unfinished battles always come back to haunt the careless. The grudge you leave alive today is the war you'll have to fight tomorrow. Only harder, only uglier. Machiavelli warned rulers, injuries should be inflicted all at once, so that being less tasted, they offend less. Benefits should be granted little by little, so that they may be better appreciated. In other words, hurt them once, hurt them fully, never drag it out. Make the strike so overwhelming that by the time they realize they've lost, it's already too late to recover. And after that strike, silence. No apologies, no justifications, no second rounds. You walk away not because you are weak, but because you have nothing left to prove. Because the man who finishes a war without leaving survivors behind doesn't just win, he guarantees peace. True power doesn't just defeat threats, it erases them. Most men think power is about action. Real power is about patience. The most devastating strikes are never the ones that happen immediately. They're the ones that come after long, deliberate silence, after the enemy has destroyed themselves from the inside. Machiavelli knew it. He understood that time is not just a measurement. Time is a weapon. And when used correctly, time accomplishes what brute force never can. When someone offends you, disrespects you, tries to provoke you, the natural impulse is to react, to fire back, to prove something. But that's exactly what they expect. That's exactly what they want. Because the man who reacts quickly is the man who exposes himself. The true strategist does the opposite. He waits, he listens, he watches. He lets the enemy think they've won. He lets the enemy relax. He lets them get comfortable, sloppy, arrogant. And all the while he says nothing. He doesn't deny. He doesn't defend. He lets the rumors swirl. He lets fear take root. Because silence isn't weakness. Silence is psychological warfare. When you refuse to react, you create a mirror, one that forces your enemies to confront themselves. They start overthinking. They start second-guessing. They start imagining what you might be planning, what revenge might be coming, when it might strike. You don't have to threaten them. You don't have to lift a finger. You let their own imagination become the executioner. That's the psychological mirror. Humans fear uncertainty more than pain. The fear of the unknown is more paralyzing than any direct threat. And when you master silence and you turn the unknown into your greatest weapon, they fear what they can't see. They fear what they can't predict. They fear what they can't control. Every day they hear nothing from you, their fear grows. Every moment you don't respond, their paranoia festers. And without you ever taking action, they begin to weaken from within. They lose allies because they seem unstable. They make mistakes because they're operating under fear, not logic. They isolate themselves without you ever lifting a hand. And when they are most isolated, most exhausted, most broken, you move. Not emotionally, not dramatically, surgically. Because by then, the battle was already over. They lost the moment they allowed fear to infect their mind. Machiavelli's true genius wasn't in teaching how to defeat enemies with force. It was in teaching how to defeat them with doubt. Force is messy, force is obvious. But psychological erosion, it's clean, it's invisible. And once it starts, it cannot be stopped. This is the true art of war in the modern world. Not with fists, not with rage, but with silence sharpened by time. You don't need to crush them in the spotlight. You let them destroy themselves in the shadows. Time, patience, and strategic stillness. These are the weapons of men who cannot be defeated. Because in a world obsessed with instant reaction, the man who can stay still the longest, the man who can remain unreadable the longest, the man who can let others collapse under the weight of their own panic, is the man who wins without ever having to fight. The true battlefield isn't a person, it's the environment. Control the environment, and you control the outcome. Most men make the fatal mistake of thinking power is about confrontation. They think victory comes from overpowering their opponent directly. It doesn't. Direct confrontation is messy, risky, and emotional. And worst of all, it gives your enemy a chance to resist, to fight, to rally support. Machiavelli understood the deeper game. He knew that if you want to win without chaos, without exposure, you don't attack the man, you attack the conditions around him. You isolate him. You change the battlefield, because no matter how strong someone is, if the ground beneath their feet crumbles, they fall. This is the art of environmental control. You don't force people to change. You make it impossible for them to survive without adapting to you. You don't demand submission. You alter the rules of engagement until submission becomes their only option. It's the chess master's mentality. You don't capture the king by chasing it. You set traps. You block escape routes. You strip away support until the king has nowhere left to go. Apply this everywhere. In business, shift deadlines, reframe negotiations, control key relationships. Make it so your opponent has to move on your terms or not move at all. In social circles, quietly influence opinion, sow subtle doubts, change the dynamics until they lose allies without even realizing why. In personal rivalries, withdraw attention, remove resources, isolate their influence until their voice grows smaller by the day. You don't attack the person directly. You attack their ability to operate. You cut the fuel lines, not the engine. And the beauty of this method? It's invisible. It doesn't trigger the same emotional defenses. By the time they realize what's happening, it's already too late. They're standing alone. They're out of moves. And you're already 3 steps ahead. Because isolation doesn't just weaken, it paralyzes. A man surrounded by support fights harder, but a man who feels abandoned, uncertain, cut off, he starts questioning himself. He second-guesses every move. He loses the will to resist. And once the will is gone, the battle is already over. The true strategist isn't obsessed with dominance. He's obsessed with positioning. You don't need to destroy your opponent violently. You simply build a world around them where every decision, every step, every move leads them closer to checkmate. It's silent warfare. It's slow erosion. It's inevitable collapse. And once it's done, you don't have to boast. You don't have to prove anything. The battlefield will speak for you. Their silence, their isolation, their disappearance, it will be the loudest proof of your victory. This is the final level of power, not brute strength, not emotional reaction, not direct confrontation. It's environmental domination. It's psychological invisibility. It's the ability to reshape the very ground your enemies stand on. When you master this, you don't just win battles, you end them before they even begin. Power isn't about noise. It's about control of yourself, of perception, of the battlefield itself. Most men will live and die chasing respect the wrong way. They'll shout, they'll fight, they'll bleed for attention that was never worth it. But you now know the deeper game, the silent game, the game of patience, invisibility, and positioning. True dominance isn't won by force. It's won by mastering 3 things: your emotions, your timing, your environment. Move when others are still reacting. Strike when others have fallen into their own traps. Disappear while others are still bragging about battles you already ended. This isn't just a strategy. It's survival in a world that rewards the man who cannot be shaken, cannot be read, and cannot be trapped. Now ask yourself, are you still playing checkers when the real players are playing chess? Are you reacting or are you shaping the battlefield? Are you chasing respect or are you commanding it without a word? If you're ready to stop playing the loud, predictable game and start moving in silence with purpose and precision, then this is your call. Drop a comment below. Tell me one moment where you stayed silent and it gave you the advantage, or one moment where you wished you had. Let's sharpen each other. Let's move differently, because in a world of noise, the man who masters silence masters everything.